Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, mgrahamsews. This video tutorial is for this stunning bag called the Bella Bag by TobiStylx Bag Pattern. Now, before I get discussing some of the features of this bag, there was just something that I wanted to discuss, and that is that this bag is filmed like a sew-along, meaning there's no parts sped up or cut out. The only times I don't show something is when there's doubles or more of parts to the bag. So for example, 2 handles, I show you how to sew one, then I go off camera and I sew the other one. The decorative panels here, I sew one, go off and sew the other. So I wanted to make note of that before we get started so that you know that this is a sew along style tutorial. So if there's any parts that you don't want to watch or you're feeling like it's taking too long, go ahead and speed up the video or watch it in a faster speed so that it's at the speed and rate that you want, or just zoom to the parts that you need. So now let's get discussing the features of this bag. And the first thing I want to say is I'm in shock that I made this bag, and it seems like with every one of Tobi's bags, I'm always in shock when I'm done, like, oh my gosh, I made this. I find this bag looks so high-end, it's so chic, it's gorgeous, I love it. And I don't know how she does it, and she keeps coming out with these designs that are just gorgeous, and I'm in love with all of them, and I always want to keep the bags. This one I'm definitely keeping for myself because it's nice to have that little bag for when I'm, dressed up a little bit, and also when I wear things that are pink, I'll have a bag with some pink to go with some of my summer dresses because some of them have a lot of pink in them and I never have a bag that's pink. I have a nice blue fancy bag, but not a pink one, so now I do. So first thing you'll notice is this bow bling. Now this is in a separate tutorial which I will link below. I put it in a separate tutorial because I thought anybody who wants to make it and add it to any other bag, they don't have to watch this whole tutorial to see how to do this. So you have this cute little bow bling here. You have 2 handles, which you can make with some tubing. So I discussed that in the tutorial, but I also show you another option as well. So you'll want to watch the tutorial to see that. You have your adjustable strap, which you can wear on your shoulder or crossbody. So it's great when you want to be hands-free. The bottom of the bag does have purse feet, so you can kind of see them sparkling there. Great for when you put your bag down. It keeps your bag off the either table or floor, wherever you're placing it. The top of the bag does close with a zipper, and the nice thing about the zipper is it has a long tail so that when you open the bag, it can open up nice and wide. And you can leave your tail hanging out if you want or tuck it in. The choice is yours, but it helps the bag open up nice and wide. As you can see, it opens up really wide, and it's quite a roomy interior. You have a zipper pocket on this side, and then on the other side we have a slip pocket. So any of those items that you don't want lost in the bottom of the bag, smaller items like your keys and such, you can place them in these pockets. It's a really great bag, perfect for if you're going, like I said, out to something fancy, or if you just want something more casual. You can make it out of quilting cotton, and you can do some embroidery on the front. You can do a panel on the front. You can do whatever you want. You can have a lot of fun with this bag. You can make many of them, and they will never look the same because there's so many different things you can do with this bag. You can even add an extra zipper pocket inside instead of a slip pocket, or 2 slip pockets. The choice is yours. You can have a lot of fun with this bag. You can omit the handles and just have this strap if you want. You can omit the strap and just have the handles. Really, the choice is yours. It's a fairly quick sew. It's a day sew, but it does come together fairly easily, even though it looks like it might not. It does, I promise it does. And like I said, you could make this in a day. You can just take your time, sew along with me, and make it in a day. It's such a fun sew. And at the end, you end up with this gorgeous bag. So this again is the Bella Bag by TobiStylx Bag Pattern. Let's get started making our bag. So the very first thing you'll want to do is read through the entire pattern. This is very important because it not only familiarizes you with the construction of the bag, but it's also important because the designer may give notes regarding different materials to use, different interfacings. So you'll want to make note of that before you begin cutting out your pattern pieces. Once you've read through everything and you've made notes of any changes that may need to be made based off the materials you're using, you can go ahead and cut out all your pattern pieces. Once that's done, as I have here, I've also, to note, gathered all of my hardware and placed it in a bag, and I've also cut all my zippers too. I like to do this so that it's all together and I'm not getting up and having to go look for my hardware. So I place it on a little baggie here that I just keep reusing every time. This bag, you can see it's kind of looking a little rough, but I just keep reusing it and placing everything in this baggie. The other thing I've done is I've made some markings. So for example, on my handles here, I've made markings down the center. And the reason I've done the markings like that is because during my video tutorials, I don't show any rulers, pattern pieces, no cutting mats, nothing like that. And I don't even mention any measurements. And this is for the protection of the designer, but it's also because I'm filming during testing and sometimes measurements can change and I don't want it to affect my tutorial. So you will need to have your pattern either open beside you or printed so that you can follow along and know what the measurements are when I refer to them. So again, some of the other markings I've made so that I don't show my pattern pieces, the markings on my main panels. I've made some other markings on my other panels here. So just any markings that need to be made, I've gone ahead and made them. Another thing I've done is marked where the centers are on the tops and bottoms of the pattern pieces, and that is something that Toby does have us do in the preparation steps. So once we have everything cut and marked, we're ready to get started. So I'm just going to move my stuff out of the way. And the first thing we're starting on is our handle panels. And for the handle panels, as I mentioned, you do need to draw a line down the center, the entire length of the handle. You'll run a line of double-sided tape on each side of that line that you drew. So if you're using quilting cotton here, you don't need to use double-sided tape. You can just press your pieces in towards, so these long edges, in towards the line, and then press it with your iron. So peel back your tape from the double-sided tape and press this into the line. Now, I'm not pressing it right against the line. I'm leaving a smidge of a space. And this is because when we go to fold it again in half, you don't have a bubble in the center of your handle because you'll have the space for the two pieces when you fold it in half to be able to fold in and not hit each other. I hope that makes sense. So not right against the line, you're folding it just so that it's just shy of the line. You just want to have that little gap. And I'll show you what I mean when I'm done this side. So see how I have a little gap there? That's so that when I fold this, you see how it folds and they do meet the fold here, but if they were right together, it would cause kind of a little bubble here or a bump. So when you fold them right now, they just fold nicely into each other. So there's the gap, and when I fold it, it folds nicely into each other. So now what you're going to do is take these and fold them in half again and clip it all along the whole panel. So I'm just going to do this really quick because I wanted to discuss with you. So what she has us do now is sew from one end where we pressed it in, so where we folded it together, this open end, that's where we're stitching, where my clips are. And we're stitching all along this edge using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now, I'm going to grab something here. For a more rolled handle look, you can, after you have it stitched, push this tubing through your handle, and she tells you the measurement of the tubing that you need to use. Now, I can't use this tubing because it's not the correct size, so I can't use my tubing even though, as you can see, I have a whole bunch of it. I can't use this tubing, but Toby does give the option to have a more rolled handle look to stitch down the edge and then push the tubing through, and you'll push it all the way through until it's centered where it needs to be. Now, because I don't have tubing, an option is to take some cording like I have here, and this is a little bit different. I am going off the pattern, so if you want to follow the pattern, you'll do what I said at first, which is clip it all the way down the edge, sew along the edge that you've clipped together here, all the way along using the measurement given in the pattern, and you can leave it just like that, or you can push, if you have that tubing, push that tubing through to give it a rolled handle look, or you can just leave it without the tubing, and you'll do that for both the handles. However, I wanted to show you another little option if you have this type of cording here. So here it is, I get it on a big roll from Amazon. You can actually take this, place it in the center of your handle. And it's sort of acting like the tubing, but I put it in before because I can't really thread it through. I mean, I could use my bodkin, but I just find this easier. So you can use a piece of double-sided tape, push it into the center, clip the edges just like that, and then sew along those edges. And that's another option if you want to have a more rolled handle look. And it'll also help add a little bit of extra strength too to your handles when you're carrying them. Now I just want to see if my presser foot, yeah, my presser foot would be good. So you may need to use your zipper foot or a thin foot if you have one to sew that, but that's just another option that I wanted to show you if you want. Now for the tutorial, I'm going to leave out that piping there, or cording, sorry. I'm just going to leave mine just like this. I'm okay with them being like this, and a flat handle, because then it'll also still look a little bit rolled, but it'll stay flat and it'll hold flat on your arm too. It won't really change anything. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch down the one side of my strap. From one end to the other. Cut your threads. And that's how your handle looks when it's done. You've top stitched down the whole edge that was clipped together, and it looks just like that. Now you need to repeat that for this second one. So I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to go make my second strap, and then I will come back and we will continue on. And again, you can push the tubing through here, so you have to open it up and push the tubing through, and that's what I was saying. Mine's too big, I wouldn't be able to get it in there, so you want to make sure you have the right size of tubing. Or you can do the other little option that I showed you, which was add that cording in the center too. That's another option if you want. I'm okay with my handle being just like this, but if you want more of a rolled handle look, that'll also help if you don't have the tubing. So I'm going to go make my other handle, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. Okay, so I've finished both handles, so now they're both stitched, so you'll see they're both top stitched. Now we need to take the big handle connector, so that is your pattern piece I. That is your big one, so you have two, so you'll see they are different because they're going to go one on top of the other, so you're going to have a nice contrast. So take your big handle connector, and you're going to place the handle, the short edge of the handle, down from the top edge of the handle connector. You're going to use the measurement given in the pattern. So I'm going to pause the camera for now. I'm going to make that mark on my handle connector, and then I'm going to come back and we will continue on. All right, so I've made the mark from the top edge down. You can see the little mark right here. You can see the line. And I drew it with my Frixion pen because I know that I'm going to be putting the small connector over top, so it's never going to be seen. So I've done that. Now we're going to take the handle and we're going to place it at that mark, and you want to make sure it's centered. So place it at the mark and center your handle. One other thing, when you're placing this on your bag, you want to have it placed the way you want your handle to face. And what I mean by that is, do you want the edge where we sewed on the outside or the inside of the bag? So when I'm carrying my bag, I like those edges that are sewn together like that. I like those to be facing each other, going towards the inside of the bag. So that means when I place my handle on my handle connector here, I'm placing it so the folded edge is going towards the left, and the edge that we stitched is on the right side. And that's going to be on the connector that will be on the right side of my bag. I hope that makes sense. I just like that seam to be in towards the center of the bag when I'm carrying it so that you don't see it. You see this nice finished edge. So once you have that clipped in place, you're going to sew this using the seam allowance, and there's 2 of them given in the pattern. And I did make the mark for the first one. The second one I'll know because I'll be able to go based off where the first one was. So stitch it in place. First row of stitching. There we go. It's easier for me to go this way. And the second row of stitching. Trim any threads. Just like that. So I've trimmed my threads and I've stitched it down. So now it's attached. So see, it's attached to the big connector. Now you're going to take one of your small connectors and you're going to place it on top. And you're going to line up the top edges, centering it, clip it in place. Now, if you want, you can use some double-sided tape, which I think I will. That'll help hold it in place so that it doesn't really shift on me when I'm sewing it. I'm going to place it on top of the handle. I'll use a little bit of double-sided tape at the bottom here. So there we go. I've taped it in place so it looks like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch around the small connector, not on the large, on the small connector all the way around, following the shape of the connector to stitch that in place. Now remember what I said about the curve, or the, I just totally lost my word. The angled corners, if you want to avoid them, you can take that extra stitch in the corner. I just give my hand wheel a bit of a turn to make sure that it catches the bobbin there. All right, so it's stitched down. Oh, it looks so pretty. So now it's all stitched down. That's how it looks. I'll try to put it behind some black here so you can see the pink better. There you go. That's how it looks, all stitched down. So now we need to repeat that for the other side. So we're going to show you one more time. So you're going to take the big connector and take your handle and lay it flat right now so that the handle is going straight up and the connector that you just sewn is laying down. Put the handle connector to the left because this is the right side one, or if you did the left, do the right side one. Bring your handle down. You want to make sure it's not twisted and it's going to lay the correct way when you get everything done and sewn and this is sewn to your bag. So right now my handle is not twisted. I've got it brought over to the other big handle connector and I can see the folded edge of my handle is going to be on the outside of my bag. Clip it in place and then sew this again using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Trim your threads. Sometimes I don't really worry about the back ones too much because those aren't really going to be seen when we're done our bag. Now again, same thing with the small one. We're going to place it on top. I'm just going to place a bit of double-sided tape here. Excuse me. Oops. Place the small on top, centering it. I'm using some double-sided tape to help hold it in place. And then we're going to stitch that down all the way around the small panel. Trimmed my threads. There we go, and that's how it looks. So if you want, I mean, you could turn it around and you could have so that your stitching shows on the outside of the bag, but I like it to be going towards the inside of the bag when I'm holding the bag. So that is how our handle looks with our connectors attached. So I'm going to go ahead and complete the second handle, and then I'll come back and we'll go on with attaching this to our bag. So I'll pause the camera and I'll be right back with my second handle done. So all my connectors are connected to both ends of my handles. These are all done. Now we need to attach these handles to our bag. So you need to grab your main panel pattern piece, which is pattern piece A, and you need to take the paper template and line it up on top, and you can either trace out, like I did, where the markings are for your connectors to go, or place the pattern piece down and then use the placement for where that connector placement is to place your connector on top. I like to do it where I trace it out because trying to put this down and then having the pattern piece there, then you have to remove the pattern piece. I just find it's a lot easier to trace it and then put this down on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some double-sided tape to help hold this down in place. This way here as I'm stitching, it won't move because I don't want to use pins or anything because I did use a vinyl. So I'm going to place it down right on top of where I made those marks. And I'll also tape the other side down while I'm at it. Now if you're using a quilting cotton or something that you can use pins on, you can go ahead and pin this in place instead. Make sure your handle isn't twisted when you bring it back around to put it to the other side. So it'll look just like that. It looks so cute. I like it. I love how the contrast is. So now we're going to stitch this down using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and you're stitching on top of the large connector. So you want to make sure you're on that large connector. So going all the way around. trim any threads. I'm not going to be worried about the back threads right now because you're never going to see those, but that's how it looks. I'm trying to see where it is. That's how it looks when it's stitched down. So now I'm going to stitch down the other side. Now we're not stitching across the top here. We're just stitching around the edges. And there we have it. Both are stitched on. Now, something that's not mentioned in the pattern is if you want, you can add a rivet here in the center of this, which I may do that a little bit later once I have some, actually I may add that now. So I may go off camera and I'm going to add rivets here. I know it's not mentioned in the pattern, but that'll just help give this some extra strength to the handle. I was going to wait until I added my interfacing, but once I add my interfacing, the bag is all completed and constructed together, so it'll be a little bit harder. But I'm going to go and add a rivet right through all these layers here just for some extra strength, and I'll reinforce it with some heavy interfacing in the back. So I'm going to go off camera and go do that, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. And while I'm off camera, I'm going to attach my handle to the second side as well. All right, so I've gotten the second handle attached and I did some rivets. Now again, the rivets aren't part of the pattern, but I just like how they look and they add that extra bit of strength and stability to the handle because we didn't stitch across the top. Now, if you don't have rivets and your machine can handle the bulk, you can go ahead and stitch across the top here just for that extra reinforcement. But I like how the rivets look. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, you can just see, it just adds a little bit more sparkle to the bag. I really love it. I'm loving how this bag is looking already and it's not even done. I'm just in love with it. Now I used a chalk here so you can sort of see my chalk line. So I'm just going to go, and yeah, I'm using my t-shirt, sorry. Usually use my shirt to wipe chalk off. So there we go. We're going to put these two panels to the side for now. Make sure you still have your center marks. If you don't, you want to remake those. So we'll put those two panels to the side. Now we're going to do the long strap connector, and it's two pieces, and this is piece, I just want to get the, it's not a letter, there's just two pieces. They'll look like this, and we're going to make these the same way we made the handle, except we're only folding them in to meet the center line. So when you're folding them in to meet the center line, you can have them touching this time because we're not folding them a second time. So place the tape on both sides of the line we drew. Excuse me. Remove the paper backing and fold the long edges in to meet that center line. And you can have them touching. Again, we're not folding them a second time, we're just folding them in to meet the line. Do that for both sides. So they'll look like that, pressed into the center. Now what we're going to do is grab our hardware. So you have a D-ring, you'll need to grab them. This one doesn't want to come out of the bag. It's like stuck to the bag, probably because it's so humid here. All right, so there we go. Now we're going to take the D-ring. You're going to slide the long connector through the D-ring and then fold it over using the measurement given in the pattern. And I made a mark on mine before I started filming this tutorial, and you'll clip it in place. Now instead of clipping it, I'm going to add a little piece of double-sided tape to hold it in place. Just the smallest little piece. Just like that. And I'll repeat that for the other side. Fold it over using the measurement. And if you want to make sure that they're the same length, you can put them together, and mine are the exact same length. Now we need to take our side panel, and we need to place one of these long strap connectors on the side panel and center it. So I'm going to use some double-sided tape, again, to help hold it in place. And you'll notice I'm going up the center, and I'm not going right up to the top because I don't want to sew through it. I try to always keep the double-sided tape out of the seam allowances, but now we need to center it so I can see where my center mark is on the back of my panel. So I'll line up the center of the strap connector. Make sure it's straight, and it'll look just like that. Oh. There we go. So making sure it's straight. So I'll do that for both. And I'm hoping you don't hear all the lawnmowers outside. It's really loud. Hoping it doesn't interrupt or interfere with the tutorial. All right, so now we're going to sew up the sides and as close to the D-ring as your machine will allow. So I'm going to switch to my zipper foot, if I can find it. A zipper foot will be really helpful because that'll let you get closer to the hardware without hitting it. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a drink of coffee. And now we're going to sew this. So I always start on the bottom edge so I can back stitch there because that's going to be in the seam allowance later. So I like to start there. And I don't quite use my regular stitch length that I use for stitching a bag together, but I don't quite go to my top stitch length. I kind of go between. This way here, I know that this is going to be nice and secure. Now, because I'm near the hardware up here, I won't be able to turn my foot and get past that hardware. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go backwards a couple of stitches. Then I can turn it around and keep sewing forward. And that way there, I don't have any issues with my foot jumping down and then skipping stitches. Now you can use a humper jumper there if you'd like. That'll help. I don't have a humper jumper, so that's just how I get around that. So that's how it looks when it's stitched. I'm going to stitch the second side. Now another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also add a rivet here, just because I like the extra security that a rivet offers. So I'm going to sew the second one, add my rivets, come back again, and we will continue on. If you don't have rivets, you don't need to do that. It's just something that I like to do. I just like to add rivets. I just like the extra security. You can add a Chicago screw. If you want some extra security, you can make a little box here and sew an X in it. Make sure your box is on top of this area that you folded down. So stay within that area just for the extra security there. And then sew an X inside it, and that'll add some extra security as well. I'm all about extra security, so anywhere that I can have that extra bit of security on my bag to make sure that everything stays attached, I like to add it. So I'm going to go do that, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. So both the long connectors are attached, and I've also added the rivet as I said I would, because I just like the way the rivets look. It just adds some extra bling. You don't need to. If you want, you can also add a Chicago screw, or you could do the box with the X inside as I mentioned, but that's not part of the pattern. That's just something extra I like to do. So we're going to put these to the side. Oh no, wait, we're not putting them to the side actually. We need to grab our decorative panel, that is the side decorative panel F piece, and we're going to place these on top of the side panels, lining up the center marks and your side edges. Now you can use a little bit of double-sided tape here to help hold it in place. I know I seem to use a lot of this, but I just really like making sure everything stays in place, because sometimes with clips, things still tend to shift around on me. So I'm going to use some double-sided tape. I'm going to place it, making sure that center mark, I can see it on my panel here, is at the center, and making sure my side edges and bottom all line up. Just like that. I'm going to repeat that for this one here. And then we're going to stitch this in place. Oh, maybe I should actually press it down. I have something on my finger here. I don't know what it's from. It looks like I got in a fight with a marker and the marker won. Hand sanitizer will take it off. I just don't want it getting onto my pink vinyl. Whatever it is, it's not coming off. Oh, it kind of came off. So making sure everything's all lined up. There we go. And now we're going to stitch this all the way around that panel using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And again, I'm not quite using a top stitch length. I'm using sort of in between my regular stitch length and my top stitch length. And I'm going to start on one of the sides so I can back stitch, because that'll get hidden in the seams later. If you have a hard time with curves, what you can do is stop with your needle down, lift your presser foot up, pivot your fabric a bit, take one stitch, needle down again, presser foot up, pivot your fabric, bring your needle down again, take one stitch. And that's what you can do anytime you have a curve. You can just do it one stitch at a time to make sure you get that curved edge really nice and accurate. Like for example, we're coming up to this area here. This has a curve that you may want to do that with, just so that you have a really nice top stitch here. And and I'm going to pivot back and go back down the side and back stitch there again, so that I don't have back stitching at the top where you're going to possibly see it when the bag is completed. And that's how it looks when we've stitched. So I'm going to do that for the second one. I have to say I'm loving how this is turning out so far. All we've been doing is just adding all the little decorative features. Now that area where your long strap connector is, if your machine struggles with the bulk, use a humper jumper to get through it. So that you don't get skip stitches there, but that's how it looks. And I'm using all vinyl, and my machine, this domestic machine, went through it all. But sometimes machines can get really picky, so you may need to increase your stitch length. You can try a humper jumper, even a walking foot, or change your needle if you're getting skip stitches. Your needle may need to be changed, and you may need to use a bigger needle. But the nice thing about the way this connector is made is it's not folded 4 times, it's only twice, so you're not having as much bulk to sew through. But that's how it looks when they're all stitched. Now we're going to put these two to the side. Grab back your main panels, and you need to grab your main decorative panel pieces, piece E, and we're going to place these at the sides, and you should have mirrored ones, so you'll have when you cut them so that they're mirrored. So when you put them together, they look like one big piece, but they're mirrored, so opposites. So you should have cut 2 with the pattern piece and the printing facing up at you, and then 2 with the pattern piece and the printing on the pattern piece facing down towards your material. And you're going to place them in the corners. Now what I did to make sure I'm placing them the correct way, because there is a tip for making sure that the long side edge of E is the side edge here. What I did when I marked my pattern piece, I put the E at the top here so I know which way this goes, so that I don't accidentally put it this way on this side. I don't do that. I don't turn it backwards. I put the E so I know where the top is. So now I'm going to, again, grab some double-sided tape. I'm going to place these on, and we're going to sew these exactly like we did for the side panel pieces. And I'm just going to tape it down, and the same thing when you get to the curve, take your time, go around those curves. So I'll show you this one, and then I'll go off camera and I'll sew the other 3 because that's going to be kind of boring for you. So I've got it taped down. I have the bottom and side edge lined up. I'm going to start on the side edge so that I can back stitch there. And I'm going to come across the bottom and then I'm going to follow this curve. Now, if you're nervous of the curve, you can do as we were doing with the side panel, 1 stitch at a time, lifting up your presser foot. Oops, I went off too far. Lifting up your presser foot, sorry, and then continuing that way. Lift up, needle down, presser foot up, 1 stitch, needle up, presser foot down, oh my goodness, needle down, presser foot up, pivot your fabric, presser foot back down, take 1 stitch, and keep doing that all the way around. And that's how it looks when it's stitched on. So I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to stitch the last 3 onto my main panels, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. All right, decorative panels are attached to the main panels. Now we need to grab our base panel, and we only need one of our main panels, and we're going to align the bottom edge of the main panel. So the main panel is right sides up. You're going to take your base and lay it right sides down, and you're going to line up that bottom edge of the main panel with one long edge of your base panel, and you can also line up your center marks. That is important. Clip it all the way along, and then we're going to sew this in place using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So make sure you switch back to your stitch length that you like to use for sewing bags together. And again, if your machine struggles a bit with that bulk where those decorative panels are, go ahead and use a humper jumper. Sometimes our machines just need a little bit of help. Now we're going to open this panel up, and we're going to push the base panel with the seams, or push the base panel down, and the seam here is going to be going down towards the base panel. So if you lay it like this after you have it stitched, flip your base panel down and your seam will already be behind the base panel. And we're going to top stitch that panel, so across the base panel, through the seam and through the base panel. I think if I wasn't filming this tutorial, I would use pink thread where I'm using my black Moonglow vinyl so that I have the contrast of the pink. I think it would have looked so cool. But I don't want to be sitting here switching threads while I'm trying to film a tutorial. So now I'm going to take the remaining main panel, place it so that it is right sides down, and this panel that we just attached the base to, you're going to take that and place that right sides together. Again, long edge of the base panel with the long edge at the bottom of the main panel. Clip the centers, clip the sides. A broken clip and it didn't even land in the garbage. That's okay, I can't see it right now. Again, I'm going to stitch this, so return your stitch length back to your length you use for stitching your bag together. And again, leaving this like this, so right now it's the panel that we had already attached the base to is on top. I'm going to flip it down, so now the seam is down underneath the base panel. And I'm going to top stitch that seam again, just like I did with the previous panel. So I'm top stitching on the base panel with the seam allowance under the base panel. Trim your threads. Return your stitch length. Don't forget to do that. Just a bit of chalk there. So this is done for now. Oh, we're not done for now with this panel actually. You need to mark for the purse feet. So it says to make your mark, your measure from the side edge here, from the short edge and the side edge, and you make a mark, and then you can go ahead and punch a hole through and install the purse feet. And when you're installing the purse feet, you can use some heavy interfacing behind in order to hold them in place and give that extra security. So I'm going to go install my purse feet, and when we come back, we'll continue on. Actually, before I do that, the other thing I'm going to do, it's the next step in the pattern. So I'll be doing my purse feet off camera because I don't show measurements on camera. But the next step is to take your side panel interfacing and fuse it to your side panels. And because I have to go off camera to do that, I might as well do that while I'm stopping and adding my purse feet. So you want to fuse your side panel interfacing centered on your side panels. So go ahead, oops, my light is falling, I didn't realize that. So go ahead and add your side panel interfacing to your side panels and add your purse feet using the measurements given in the pattern. So I'll be off camera, I'll do that, and then I'll come back and my interfacing will be attached and all my purse feet will be attached too. Alright, so the purse feet are attached to the bottom of the bag and my interfacing is attached to my side panels. I like to let it cool while oh, this side didn't attach, so I'm just going to fuse that quickly. But I usually like to leave it cool for a little bit to ensure that it fuses properly and then I don't get any wrinkles or anything. And here's how it looks with the purse feet all attached. I'm just going to quickly fuse this piece. I guess I didn't realize I didn't fuse that one, and I will be right back. Alright, so I fixed that. It's now all fused. I guess I just missed that one corner. Now we need to start with one of our side panels, and you're going to take it and you're going to match them to the bottom center. So first start with the bottom, matching up your centers. Oops. And then you're going to match the top edges, top up here. Sorry, Toby has us match the tops first, then the bottom. So you're matching the top, so we're going to start how Toby has it. So see the top here where it turns and it curves down? Right here at this point is where you're matching the side. Because you'll notice the side panel also has that same curve that the main panel has. So match those two top edges. So used to always matching the bottom edge first. Then match the bottom centers. That's the other half of that clip that broke, I guess. And continue clipping all the way around. And your panel should fit perfectly all the way. Now a little tip to help in this curved area here where the curve is on the bottom, you can make little snips inside the seam allowance on that curved area, and what that'll do is that'll actually take the fabric and open it up so it'll lay flat and you won't get any puckers or anything when you do that. Now another thing you want to pay special attention to is that your decorative panels line up. So make sure those line up. I'm going to go back and make sure my one on the side lines up as well on the other side. I'm using lots of clips if you've noticed, because I really don't want anything to shift on me once I start sewing. And yeah, I need to adjust this one just slightly. So undoing my clips, adjusting it, placing a clip. All right, and then as I was mentioning, you can make small snips within the seam allowance around those curves. This will really help make sure that you don't get any puckers or anything, because those are really the worst when we turn our bag out and then we see a pucker. All right, now we're going to sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern, starting at the top, right at the tip top here. And I'm going to grab out my extension table just because I feel like that's being pulled down too much. Oops. There we go. And another thing, you may want to make sure your bobbin is full. I just changed my bobbin while I was off camera at one point, so I know I have a nice full bobbin. You want to make sure you're following the curve of the bag. Oh, I didn't lift this leg up. Where is it? There we go. Just make sure you're spreading out your fabric when you come around these curves so you don't get any puckers. Take your time around the curves. Again, if you have a hard time with the curves, you can take it one stitch at a time, just like we did previously. And I'm just trying to flatten out my fabric here. I'm going to move these before I send them flying. Anytime you lift up your presser foot, make sure your needle is down. Go. I'm just going to make sure that everything looks good, which it does. So we're good on this side. Now, I'm just going to move my table out of the way. So everything looks good on the one side. Everything is all lined up nicely. We're going to repeat that whole process for the second side. So again, clipping at the top. Again, I'm sorry if you can hear the yard maintenance crew. And I'm also pinning where the decorative panels are so that they line up. I want to make sure everything is nicely lined up. Handles in. This is a really cute little bag. Make sure that the seam too stays pressed towards the bottom panel. I should have mentioned that on the other side. It is top stitched down, which will hold it there, but sometimes it can, the other part of it that's not stitched down can flip. So just make sure that that stays pressed towards the bottom panel. Okie dokie. Now let's clip those corners, or those curves, I mean. Just moved my clip so I could clip under it, because I really want to make sure I can get these nice without puckers. I didn't even really check the other side, I just made sure everything was lined up. Here's hoping for the best. Let me feel. Doesn't feel like there's any puckers. All right, extension table again, because I feel like, oops, this gets pulled down. I hit my light again. Kind of keeps getting in the view of the camera. There we go. Okay, so again, starting at the top, working our way all the way around the entire bag, using the seam allowance given in the pattern, using your stitch length you like to use when you sew a bag together. Coming up to the curve, I'm just going to take my time. And this is also why, if you've noticed, there's no interfacing so far. We haven't attached it to the main panel yet, because it would be really hard if we had that Decoville heavy attached right now. Wouldn't be impossible, but it would be really hard to sew this bag together right now and manipulate it the way we're moving it around, because Decoville heavy is very stiff, as you'll notice with the side panels. All right, so let me just feel. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh my goodness, it's so pretty. I am in love with this bag. I don't want to turn it right sides out just yet. Or are we supposed to? Hang on, we might have to turn it right sides out. Yes, we need to turn it right sides out. So I'm going to do that. First, I'm going to clip my threads, because I don't think I did that on either side. It did not. Okay. Now we're going to turn it right sides out. And again, not having that interfacing there also makes it easy for turning the bag right sides out. So try to gently push out your curves. Having the snips in the curve will help push the curves out as well, because the material will smooth out around them. Just look at how cute this looks so far, and we're not even done. Look at this cute little bag. Even if you didn't interface it, it's still really cute. It's so cute, I love it. All right, so now that that's done, we need to put this to the side for a moment. I'm going to move my extension table until I need it again later, because it's going to be in my way. All right, so now we need to grab our main zipper. And you'll notice my main zipper does not have the pull on it. That's what you want. So what you're going to do first is there's a mark you need to make from the short edge down, and you'll want to make that mark. Then what you do is you pinch at that mark and bring your zipper teeth. So you pinch it so that the zipper teeth go wrong sides together, just like that, and then bring the teeth towards the fold so that that fold sits underneath the zipper teeth and you get it turned at a 90-degree angle. I do have a tutorial on my YouTube channel showing how to do this more, so I will link that below, but pinch them so the zipper tape is wrong sides together, and then bring the teeth that are behind up so that it goes on top. The zipper teeth are above that fold, just like that. And then we're going to stitch this in place. Now I do have a needle there, so I'm going to be very careful. And then back stitch a few times. Trim your threads. And I'm also going to trim my zipper tape so it's even with the side edges here. All right, so that's how it looks. It's all even. Now we're going to separate the teeth just like that. Grab back your bag, your exterior bag, and we need to place the zipper tape onto the top edge of the bag. And there's some marks that we need to make for where the zipper tape is going to start and where the zipper tape is going to stop. So you want to go ahead and go make those marks now. So it's marked from the center of the side panels, both those marks. So I'm going to go off camera, I'm going to make those marks, and then I'll come back and we will attach our zipper. All right, so I've made those marks, and again, the marks are made from the center of the side panels over, and there's two different marks to make on each side. One is a start mark and one is a stop mark. So you want to make sure you don't confuse which is the start and which is the stop. I placed a clip for where we're starting so I can remember. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take one half of the zipper, and the half that you're using is going to start at that mark that you made where your start mark is. Now you want to pay attention for how your zipper is placed. My zipper, just so you know, the teeth go down towards the bottom of the bag. You want to make sure that's how they're pointing. You don't want them pointing up. You don't want to sew with your zipper teeth against the raw edge of the bag. It's raw edge of the zipper with raw edge of the bag. Clip it in place. And I'm just using that clip that I had there because I don't need it there anymore. I know where I'm starting now. And you can open your seams where the top meets the side. And just keep pinning it all the way along. And I'm pinning so that that seam stays open when I get to that seam at the side. Now I'm going to clip it all the way along, and I'm going to transfer that mark that I made on the stop side onto my zipper tape so I know exactly where to stop. It's not really marking. Out of chalk here, or almost out of chalk. All right, so I've got the marks on the zipper tape. I transferred it. My tape is attached. Now I'm going to sew this down. And because I don't really have a free arm on my machine, I'm going to sort of just turn this back wrong sides out. Excuse me. So I think that'll make it easier for me to sew this in place. And I'm also going to use my table. I just hit my light again. Excuse me. So So starting at the starting point, I'm going to sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And make sure you're following the curve of the bag so that we keep that shape of the bag. I'm sewing along and I'm coming up to where I need to stop. So when I get to that mark, I'm going to back stitch just like that. Now I'm going to trim my threads, and we have our zipper tape attached to one side of our bag right now. So we have 1/2 of the zipper tape attached. We need to repeat that for the other side. So now what we'll do is opposite side. So I'll show you how to attach it, and then I'll go off camera and I'll sew it, because I don't think you need to sit here and watch me sew. Although it didn't really take that long, I guess I can sew it on camera. So turn the bag around, and you need to take this tape, and same thing, at the starting point, that's where the starting of those teeth, so where it's folded, that's where the teeth will go, at the starting point. I call it starting point, but it's the starting mark. Keep clipping it all the way. Make sure you clip that seam open. That'll help reduce bulk as well when we go to attach the lining. Whoops. Oh, I'm running over my microphone cord. And again, I will turn my bag so it is wrong sides out, because I don't have a free arm, so I can't really see what I'm doing. And that mark is right here, so I need to transfer that mark. So again, turn the bag. And I will sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and I'm going to go this way now. I like to start at this end just in case when I was clipping I didn't clip properly, and like there's some extra give on the zipper. This way here it'll go towards the tail end instead of it shifting up towards the beginning of my zipper tape. So that just ensures the beginning of the zipper tape stays at the mark for the start stop. Just a personal preference, you don't have to do this. You can sew whichever way you want. I just like to make sure, like I said, that if when we're sewing along, say I didn't clip the zipper perfectly, any of the shifting will go towards the tail end of the zipper. Oops, I'll get that later. And again, making sure those seams stay opened. Or open, not opened. And I'm coming up to the stop mark. There we go. threads wherever they are and cut them. All right, turn my exterior back right sides out. So there we have the zipper so far attached. You can see it here. If you flip it up, you'll see that it closes nicely. Now we need to fuse our base and main panel interfacings inside our bag. So I'm going to go off camera to do that. Now, if you have a small iron, it is best to use that because that'll help you get in there and make sure that you get it all fused. So if you have a small iron, you'll want to use that. I have a small iron, which I like to use. And I also like to tuck it so that the interfacing is under any of the seam allowances, so that it's all under the seam allowances and it fits nicely. The seam allowances kind of help act like a skeleton too, like it adds the bit of structure in the seam. So I like to just tuck it under with the interfacing there. It'll help hold it in place. And if when you're placing your interfacing in, you find that it's just a smidge too big, you can go ahead and trim it down to size. So mine seems to fit good. I'm just doing it now so I can show you what it looks like once it's inside the bag. I'm just trying to get it pushed into the corners here. So that's how it looks on one side once it's put inside the bag. So I'll press it with my iron, and I'm making sure I keep it out of the upper seam allowances up here, so when I stitch the lining, it's not in that seam allowance as well. So I'm going to go attach my interfacings to my bag. Again, I'm going to use my small iron, and then I'll come back and we will continue on with making the zipper pocket. So we're constructing the lining next. All right, so the interfacing is all attached, and as you can see, it holds its shape beautifully. I had to repress a little bit on the sides just to make sure it stayed in, but it's on the bottom. So there's the bottom of the bag, but look at it, already holds its shape. It's lovely, I love it. And I also realized when I put my handles on, even though I said I didn't want the seams on the outside, I ended up putting them on the outside because I do kind of like the stitching going out. I think it just adds a little bit of extra detail. So I did place them so the stitching would be facing out towards the outside of the bag. But there it is, it's already holding its shape. I love it. So now we need to move on to constructing our zipper pocket. So we need one of our main lining panels, our zipper pocket pieces, and our zipper overlay. So we'll move these out of the way. We're going to take our zipper overlay, and if you haven't already, you'll want to cut the center window out as instructed on the pattern piece. We're going to place some double-sided tape on the back of our overlay, in the center of the overlay. And then we need to fold the center, find the center of our lining panel. So fold it in half and just give it a press with your fingers so it creates a crease. And there's a mark for where you need to place this, and you're going to measure from the bottom of the panel up, and that's where the bottom of your zipper overlay will sit, is on that mark. And I've already made that mark here. So remove the paper backing on the overlay. So that's the paper backing of the double-sided tape. Fold your overlay in half so that you get a crease. I should have did this before I took the paper backing off because it just wants to stick to my fingers. There we go. And taking that center crease of the overlay and lining it up with that center crease you made on your lining, line them up and line up the overlay with that mark that you made on the panel. I'm just erasing that chalk line. I should just buy like a little sponge or something that I can just use to erase that all the time. Now what we're going to do is stitch around the entire outer edge. So the outer edge here of the zipper overlay. And if you don't want to see your stitches, you can leave long thread tails and tie them off, pull them through to the back and tie them off. I'm using a thread that matches, so I'm okay with back stitching. If you don't have a thread that matches, but you're using a busier print for your overlay, you can also back stitch. The choice is yours. So you're just stitching around the outer edge of the overlay. Trim the thread on the front. Now what we need to do is cut this little window opening here. So we're going to make a slit with our seam ripper, and we're going to cut away that middle area. And I'm going to use my duckbill scissors for this so that I can be careful when I'm cutting, because the bill of the scissors protects the underside fabric. So it goes between the fabric that I'm not cutting and the fabric that I am cutting. And that just helped me cut my threads too. And I do keep checking, even though I'm using the duckbill scissors, I do keep checking just to make sure I'm not catching that overlay. And this doesn't have to be pretty. You don't have to use a ruler and cut right on the lines or anything, because this is all going to be covered in the end. Just trying to put my scissors away. All right, so when we flip it over, that's how it looks. So put this to the side for now and grab out your zipper pocket zipper. I'm also going to need my zipper helper. So I don't have my zipper pull installed yet. That's the way I want it, because I just find it's easier to construct this zipper pocket without the zipper pull on. So what you're going to do is take one of your zipper pocket panel pieces, and you're going to place your zipper right sides up on top of the zipper pocket along that long edge. Clip it together, and then we'll stitch this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And then we're going to repeat that for the other side. So I'm just going to press this zipper tape up and press the pocket down. Oops. Just going to cut these little threads here. They're driving me a little nutty. Again, zipper pocket right sides up, zipper tape right sides up, right on top. Clip it in place and then sew it with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Again, press that zipper away from the panel, or press the panel away from the zipper, so you're pressing it open so that the zipper is flat, just like that. I'm just using my fingers to press it, or my nails, I guess. You can take it to your iron and press it if you want. Now we're going to apply some double-sided tape to the long edges of the zipper, and then before I move to the next step, I'm going to install my zipper pull using my handy little zipper helper here. And I do have a tutorial on my YouTube channel. I will link that for how I use my little zipper helper. There we go. remove the paper backing from the double-sided tape, and then we're going to center this in the window of the zipper overlay. So you want the teeth zippered in that window, and you want the zipper centered in the window. So everything centered. And I'm using a waterproof canvas for my lining, so that's why there's no interfacing on it, which will also help give the bag a little bit more structure too, because waterproof canvas kind of has that little extra structure. So now what we need to do is, leaving long thread tails, we're going to stitch along this bottom here of the zipper. And you're going to leave long thread tails. You're not going to back stitch, because we're going to pull them through and tie them off. Slide my zipper pull out of the way so I can get past it. So long thread tails. Woo! Look at that. I forgot to make sure my zipper pocket was flat. Look at that. So now I need to unpick this all. I'm glad you saw this, because this just shows that we sometimes miss things. I forgot to make sure that my pocket was flat. Usually what I do is I pin the pocket down so that it's out of the way and it doesn't shift on me, and this is exactly the reason why. Just going to So I'm just going to stitch directly right on top of those previous stitches, just so I don't have a second row of stitching or holes. I'm just going to go right in those holes. Make sure that pocket is flat. Don't pull a Michelle. Pocket flat. All right, let's go. Zipper pull out of the way. There we go. That's much better. So you're pulling the thread tails to the back. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just using the sharp end of my scissors to get in the little loop that comes up. Be careful that you don't cut it though when you're pulling on it. I just tug on the back thread, causes a loop, and then I pull it up. Now I'm making a knot. If you're concerned about the knot coming undone, you can add a little bit of glue or some fray stop or fray check to it to prevent it from coming undone. I haven't had that happen, thankfully. But if you're nervous, you can do that. I'm not going to cut these threads yet, and I'll show you why after. Oops. Just make sure they're down. Now what we need to do is flip the zipper pocket down, and starting where we stopped, you're going to leave long thread tails, and you're going to stitch up the short edge across the top and down this other short edge and stop where we started. So I'm actually going to use a pin. I normally wouldn't, but I'm going to. There we go. So starting where I stopped originally, right there, long thread tails and stitch away. Don't forget to move your zipper pull out of the way when you approach it. There's the loop. You can see I brought it up again. Tie them off. And then I'm going to open this up and cut those threads. So what I did was I hopefully stitched over the thread. Oh no, I caught it right there, the thread. I stitched right on top of the thread. Now, sometimes what I like to do, I'll show you in a second, is knot these together right on the edge here, because I don't cut my zipper pocket at all. I just knot them together just to add a little bit of security to make sure those threads don't come undone. Just like that. It wraps around the pocket, but I just like to do that for that little extra security. So you have the knots that you made individually, and then the knots together. Just a little bit of extra security. And I stopped there, perfect. Don't tie it too tight though, you don't want to pull on the fabric. Just tie it so that it's just tied, just tight enough. Okie dokie. Now what you need to do is lift up or flip over your back so you're looking at the wrong side, and you're going to trim this pocket so that it is the wrong or right, geez, I'm lost for words today. So that it is the same length. So you're trimming the pocket so that it is the same length. Once you've done that, you're going to make a mark up from the bottom, and then when you have that line made, what you're going to do is press your panel up to that mark. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to go and make that mark now, and I'll come back, my panel will be pressed, and we'll continue on. All right, so I've gone ahead and pressed the bottoms up, and I've also clipped the sides. So now what I'm going to do is flip the panel over, and I'm going to sew the sides of the pocket, not the bottom. The bottom is staying open so that we can pull the lining through it later and close the lining off. And I'm just peeling back any of the double-sided tape so I don't sew through it. So now I'm going to stitch the sides of the pocket, zip my zipper out of the way because when it's there, it makes it hard to get a nice accurate seam allowance. I just peel the double-sided tape back because then once I'm done sewing it, the double-sided tape will help hold down the zipper pocket again. So we're sewing this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Just going to trim these threads. I don't really concern with trimming them right to the edge because they're hidden within the bag later. So there it is, our pocket. It has a hole in the bottom for now. As I said, that's how you want it to be. Leave the zipper open so that you can easily turn the bag through that later, or pull the bag through that later, although it doesn't matter because we're going to be pulling the bag through the bottom. Now we need to take the panels at the top here and we need to pin them together to give the lining its shape. So the same shape as what the exterior has. So where this V is here at the top, you're just going to flip it and pin that together. And you'll sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. threads. And there you have it. Your shape of your lining is done, your one lining. Moving right along, we're going to create our slip pocket. So take your slip pocket piece and fold it so that it is right sides together. Clip it in place. And then we're going to sew it using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And we're only sewing the sides. We're not sewing the top edge. I always find creating the pockets goes a lot faster than everything else. I don't know why, but I find the lining is a lot faster. I think it's because all the extra details on the exterior of the bag. Now we need to trim the corners. Don't cut your stitches. We will turn this right sides out, so I'm just going to grab my turning tool. And I'm going to take this to my iron and quickly give this a press. All right, so I've given my little slip pocket a press. Now you need to take your slip pocket trim, and this is piece, there's no letter, it's just called slip pocket trim, and you need to draw a line down from the top long edge the entire length of the slip pocket trim, which I've already done. You'll place, oops, some double-sided tape. Of course I dropped mine and it went right under my table. You'll place some double-sided tape along that line. Keep making sure I don't run over my cord. Double-sided tape along that line. Fold the edge down to meet that line. So it'll look like this. So the smaller edge, so from the top down is where you drew the line, and the top will be folded down to meet that line. So you see, just like that. Now we're going to take our slip pocket trim, and with our pocket right sides up, so I want this to be the right side because when I look in my bag, that's the direction of the fabric. And when you look inside, you'll look at that side of the pocket, so it'll still be right sides up. Pin this to the top edge. And then you'll sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now you're going to take the slip pocket trim and you're going to fold it over so it covers the other side. And I'm going to use some double-sided tape to help hold this in place. And you want it to match the other side. So just make sure it lines up when you flip it over. So everything matches up, and then we'll top stitch this down. Trim your threads, and then what you also need to do is trim the slip pocket trim so it is the same length or width as the pocket. You don't want any overhang of the slip pocket trim. Just be careful not to trim your pocket. And there you have it, your slip pocket trim. Beautiful. Now we need to take our slip pocket and place it so it is centered on the panel. So again, take your lining panel, fold it in half, create that crease, fold your slip pocket in half and create that crease. And there's a mark from the bottom of your panel up that you need to make, and that's where the bottom of the pocket will go. So I'm going to line up those two creases and the bottom of the pocket with that line that I made. So line from the bottom up, bottom of my slip pocket there, and centered on my panel. Using some pins, I'm going to pin it in place. There we go. Now I'm going to sew the pocket in place. Don't forget to backstitch at start and stop. So I'm sewing along the sides. I just poked myself with a pin. Sewing along the sides and the bottom. And I really make sure I backstitch quite a bit at the top there, just because there is a lot of stress on the pocket when we're going in and out of a pocket. So that's how your slip pocket looks. Now I just need to make sure I get rid of that mark. There we go. Okay, same thing we did with the previous panel. You're going to fold this V at the top here so that it meets. Just like that. You're creating the shape at the top of the bag like we have for the line for the exterior without needing to have your side panels like we sewed to the exterior. And you're going to sew that with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Trim your threads. And there you go. We have our other lining panel done. Now we're going to assemble the bag. So you need to take both your lining panels and place them so that they are right sides together. You're going to clip the sides. And then we're going to sew these sides together using the seam allowance given in the pattern. There's one. Second side, and now what we're going to do is trim our seam allowances. I'm using pinking shears. You can use your regular scissors if you want. So that's how it looks so far. Now, with the exterior still right sides out, we're going to place the lining over the exterior. But before we do that, I want to stitch oh no, I'll be able to just press it. Here, I'm just going to press my seams open at the top. I was going to stitch them, but I'm just going to press them open. Because the canvas kind of presses itself open. So we're going to place this over the bag. And you may want to make sure your zipper pocket closes in the same direction as your zipper on the exterior of the bag. So make sure it's going in the same direction when closed. So I'm trying to grab the exterior, but I keep grabbing the slip pocket. So just pull it through. And starting with these seams for the sides, so the side panel and this seam that we just sewed together on the lining, those seams you want to line up. So line all those 4 seams up. Take your time doing this. You really want them to be lined up and nice, and everything looks great when you're done. And then pin the centers. Now my zipper tape here at the end, at the one end, I want to make sure it's pushed out of the way. So pull them out of the way. And the seams on the sides is going to line up with the center seam, or the center that you drew on your side panel. So the side seam on the lining lines up with the center seam or center line that you drew on the lining. Or sorry, on the side panel. I don't think I should talk while I'm thinking. All right. Clip it the rest of the way. Making sure those handles stay down. Now, it might be a bit tricky when we're stitching this, so we're going to go really slow. We're going to take our time. We're not going to rush through it. We're just going to sew ever so slowly to make sure that everything is sewn perfectly together. Especially when we come around these curves here. We'll have to really squish our bag. And because there's Decoville Heavy in there, it's going to make it a little bit difficult to squish, but we can do it. I'm going to use my extension table. Whoops. Thought I just ended my video. Thankfully, I did not. Now we're going to sew the top edge using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So I'm going to switch out to a zipper foot so I can get a really good seam allowance here. I just have to find it in my bag of zippers, presser feet. Okay. Start wherever you feel most comfortable starting. I'm starting at the top here. And I can feel that this is pulling. just sew all the way around. This is where we have to squish our bag because we're coming around where that curve is. And again, I'm taking it one stitch at a time. First side done. I'm kind of sweating. Could also be because it's hot here. It's a workout for my arms. Just gonna grab a drink. All right, I'm coming around to where those zippers are, where we had to stop and start the zippers. So I just want to make sure that my zippers are out of the way and they don't overlap each other. I'm just gonna lift this up. There we go. Okay, so I've moved the zippers, or I think I did. Ah, no, I pulled the wrong one. Okay, so I've got the zippers pulled to either side. Let's go. It's the squishing of the bag that's harder than the actual sewing, because I don't have a free arm on my machine. If I had a free arm, I would have zoomed right through this. All right, so we're going to pull the lining up. We're just going to check everything before we assume we're done. Just make sure that all the seams are caught. Everything's caught and we didn't sew anything incorrectly, like our zipper. Can push it down into the bag. I can't believe everything lines up. This is just amazing. I keep amazing myself with this bag. So another thing I want to do is add clips to the top here, because I can't press my bag because I used a vinyl, and I don't want to press the waterproof canvas because I have vinyl inside and I don't want to accidentally hit it. But now I need to top stitch my bag. This is going to be the fun part. So I'm going to get this ready. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add clips, and then I'm going to actually turn my bag so it's lining side out. When you don't have a free arm, it's better to do it with lining side out so that you can top stitch all the way around easily. I'm just really pressing with my fingers that area where the bulk is. I love the shape of the bag, and it's actually probably even big enough almost for me, which is strange. But if I wanted a bag for going out somewhere or when I wear any of my little dresses, especially the ones that I have that are pink, this would be perfect. So I think I'm going to keep this for me. Just so I have sort of a fancier bag. Now, if you have used quilting cotton for any part of this, you can press this with your iron. I'm using these clips, as I mentioned, because I don't want to press because I do have some vinyl inside the bag and I don't want to accidentally hit it and cause issues for my bag. So I'm going to turn my bag so that the lining is right sides out. This might be a bit tricky. Oops. Oh. Yeah, this is not easy. All right. And I can see that my interfacing is lifting, so I may need to press it again. It's because the purse feet are there, so it was not able to fuse where the purse feet were. Ow. All right, so I'm just going to make sure everything is nice and flat. Get those handles pushed down out of the way because we don't want to stitch over the handles. My stitch length is where I want it to be, and pick a place that you want to start stitching and just go for it. I'm going to start over on the side here, as close to the side seam as possible. And of course I have my clips all the wrong way because I originally had it turned the other way. Oops. Accidentally pulled my thread out. Of course. Third time's a charm. Okay. So you can leave long thread tails if you want. I'm not going to because I'm going to start right here where the zipper gets tucked in at the end. So I'm just going to back stitch there. Just make sure as you're sewing that this lining is nice and flat. Whoops. If you have to use a humper jumper to get over those seams where the side panels meet the main panel, go ahead and use a humper jumper. Use whatever tools you need to make this easier for you and so that you have really nice top stitching in the end. Oops. It's a workout for my arms. I don't know if you feel the same way when you're doing this. So when I'm done this, I will turn this back so that my exterior is right sides out. And then when I'm done with sewing the lining and everything, that's when I'll refuse, because this is still sticking a bit, unless when I turn it right sides out I notice it's not. But because it's still sticking a bit, I won't refuse it until the lining is stitched up. All right, I'm done. So I'm going to cut any threads that I have. I can't get this little one. There we go. Ow, poked myself with my scissors. Okay, the thread is getting tangled around the zipper. So now I'm going to push this so that it is back right sides out. If you want, you can trim the bulk, which I think I will. I'm going to trim this while I have it still open at the bottom here. I'm just going to trim the bulk in these corners just a little bit, because it is making it hard to get a really nice curve there. There is a lot of bulk here, so just be careful not to trim any stitches. One down, the other side to go. It'll just help remove the bulk in that area so that when we turn those corners out, I'm trying to poke out those little curves, they'll poke out nicer. I should have done this earlier. So see all that bulk? That's gone now in those curves. That'll help big time. So that makes my curves a lot nicer, because it's not just the bulk all there. And I am going to take this to my iron and I'm going to give it a press again, get inside there and press my interfacing down so that it is fused back in place, because it did lift even from the side panels. So I'm going to do that now, because I don't want to do that when the lining is all done and in place, because I do have that vinyl in there. So I'm going to go do that and I'll come right back. All right, so I've repressed my interfacing back in place so that it is sealed down. Again, where the purse feet are, it doesn't really stick down very well. So now what we need to do is bring the bottom of the lining up through the opening we left in the zipper pocket. So bring it up through the zipper pocket. I'm just going to grab them both. Now it's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze, but you can do it. So just like that, I brought it up through the pocket and I'm kind of yanking on it. Well, not really yanking on it, but pulling on it. I'm going to clip the bottom of the bag together. And again, this is going to be a bit of a tight squeeze here. I believe in you, you can do it. can see the center marks. Let's see if they line up, and they do. I thought it had erased with the heat from the iron. And again, having a small iron is really helpful because it helps you get in to the bag and be able to press things, because with my bigger iron I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have had to use my small iron. So now I'm going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Make sure you change your stitch length back to your length for stitching a bag together. And one more thing we need to do is we need to box the bottom corners. So you need to kind of push your bag so that you can get it so that the box corners can come out more. You're going to line up the bottom seam with the side seam, and I like to press one seam to the left and one seam to the right. Add some clips, and again, this is going to probably feel a little bit tricky, but I know you can do it. And just sew that corner. You're kind of squishing your bag. Don't be afraid to do it. That's one corner done. And I want to bring out that other corner a bit more. Again, I'm pressing the seams so that they nest, so I'm pushing one to the left and one to the right. I can tell my hands are starting to be done. It's getting harder and harder to open clips. That's when I know my hands are done. Thankfully, we're almost done. Again, make sure those seams stay pressed, one towards the left and one towards the right. It helps with the bulk. Make sure you're not sewing anything else but these box corners. And I'm not even going to concern myself with snipping any threads. I'm going to be a rebel. Just get this pushed into the bag. Now we're going to pull the lining out, or not lining, the lining zipper pocket out, and we're going to close that opening. All these little finishing touches to get the bag done, but we are almost close to being done. A few more things left to do. So we'll stitch this closed. You can slip stitch this by hand if you want. I figure it's in a pocket, so I always use my machine. No one really sees that, especially once you have everything in the pocket. But if you really want, you can definitely stitch it closed by hand. Tuck the pocket in. I make sure to push the corners down. Close your pocket. Get everything pressed all nice. My God, this is such a gorgeous bag. This is stunning. Sorry. Okay, so now we need to add our zipper pull. So I'm going to again use my handy zipper helper. If you have a zipper jig, you can use your zipper jig. This is just one that I've made, which I love. Well, my husband made. I painted it. He put it all together for me because I was tired of using a fork on my table. Perfect. Just be careful if you're opening up your zipper right now that you don't slide it right off after you've just attached it. But I mean, this bag is stunning. I can't get over this. Like, I look at this and I think, oh my gosh, I made this. Like, I can't believe I made this. It looks so high end. All right, now we need to add our zipper end. I'm sure you'll all feel the same when you finish your bag too. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I made this. Now I used gunmetal hardware and this matte black zipper, so I'm going to make the zipper end match the zipper. Just because it matches the teeth, it'll blend in nicely. So I'm putting on my zipper end. I do always add a little bit of glue into the zipper end, just in case the screw falls out. So I fold the ends of the zipper back onto itself. Push the zipper into the zipper end. Fits. If you don't like the length of this zipper tail too, you can always trim it before you add your zipper end. A nice long tail is always helpful for when you open and close the bag. It helps you open it wider. That's not the right size. I just need some extra. There we go. Turn. And if you're wondering where I got this little hardware kit, my husband got it for me at the dollar store. And it has all the different screwdrivers that I could possibly need. I love it. It's been helpful because the screwdriver I was using before didn't seem like it was quite enough for the hardware. Some of the hardware screws are a bit different in sizes, so this just really helps. I can't believe this. Even that lines up. This is just beautiful. There's that on it. I'm in love with this bag. Absolutely in love with it. All right. Now that that's done, we need to make our long strap. Now, as I said, you can tuck your zipper end into the end of your bag. Just going to put that there. To make our long strap, you need to grab your long strap. You need to make a mark down the center like we did for the strap connector and the handles. Then you'll place some double-sided tape all the way along the whole length beside the line that you drew. And I'm not staying very straight, but as long as it's where the line is, so that when you push it to the center, it touches it, holds it down. Normally I use a wider double-sided tape here, but I don't have any more left. Well, I do, I have a little bit, it won't be enough, so I'm just sort of holding on to that for when I really need the little bit. Okay. I'm just going to push my machine out of the way for a moment. Yeah, I squished my bag too much. I didn't want to do that. Move that here. Okay. Now we're going to move the paper backing. And I'm just going to remove the paper backing a little bit at a time. Remember, don't go right to the line. Just leave a little gap, a little bit of space before the line. You don't want it to touch the line. Now to the other side, and you'll notice I'm not peeling off the double-sided tape backing the whole way. That's just because I don't want it to get stuck to anything else. Now I'm going to place double-sided tape yet again, just to help hold it in place. I think I'll use my other one though. It's thicker. I need to get more tape. You don't necessarily need to put the tape like this. I just like it because it really prevents the strap from shifting. Even with clips, it still tends to shift sometimes, so I just like having this for that purpose. Now you can add clips, which will help hold it as well as you go along. If this part is boring for you, you can definitely speed this up or skip to the end or skip to any part that you want. I will pause the camera before I sew this. Actually, I'll pause the camera now. I'll continue with this. And then I'm just going to sew both sides of the strap. So using the seam allowance in the pattern. So we sewed the handle on one side, but this one we're going to sew both sides. I don't think you need to sit and watch me do that. And then I'll come back and we'll attach all our hardware and get our strap made and attach it to our bag. So I'll go do that now, and then I'll come back and we will continue with attaching all the hardware and attaching this to our bag. So I'll be right back. All right, so my strap is all top stitched. Now we need to grab out our hardware. We're going to make this into an adjustable strap. So you can clip it to the side D-rings and wear it across body or on your shoulder, however you want. So you have the cute little handles, and then you have the strap. We need the rivet press. I won't actually set the rivets, I'll just punch the first set of holes and then I'll go off camera and I will press the rivets. So what you need to do is take your strap and feed it through your slider. So your slider may have a bar that doesn't move, like mine does. It may be stuck right in the middle. What you'll do is drop that bar so it's down to the bottom, slide the raw end of your strap through. I'm just going to cut a thread here through it. Then what I like to do is go about that far, then push the metal bar back so it's against the strap and bring the strap back over that middle bar so it looks like this with the middle bar in the center. Now you don't have to pull it all the way through. You can just have it using the measurement given in the pattern if there is one, or use your favorite measurement. So there we go. Now if you have rivets, you can use a rivet here. If you don't have rivets, not to worry, you can just use some, or you can just sew it. Now I'm just going to make sure that this is going to be okay to use, or do I need to switch to my wide mouth one? But I think we're okay with this. Yeah, I used a wide mouth one on another one and it seems like it's loose all the time, so I would rather it be a little bit tight and have to really work at it to get it to move. So I'm just going to add my rivet here. I'm just making sure that it's going to be centered. Because if I don't set it now, it'll be harder later. So I'm going to set my rivet on camera. And the rivet you'll use, the size of the rivet, is really dependent on the material you're using here for your strap. So you want the end of the rivet, the post of the rivet, to just stick out the other side of your material. Okay, now what you're going to do is lay your strap flat. I like to lay it so that the end here that's folded over is facing up on my table. So make it flat all the way down. Then I'm going to take my swivel hook, and with the hook against the table, I'm going to slide my strap through the hardware on the swivel hook, keeping my strap flat so it's not twisted. I'm going to bring the one end again up through the slider and back down through the other side so it goes over the middle bar. Just like that. So we have, I'm going to make this slightly shorter. There we go. So just like that. Now with your slider against the table, so that end here, you'll see it's in between the layers. I just like to have it there. That's a personal preference. Now with your strap like this and your slider against the table, take the other swivel hook, slide it onto your hardware, slide the strap onto your hardware, and then again, we're going to press this. We're going to punch a hole. I almost just want a second press just so I don't have to constantly take this apart and put it back together. It would be so much faster. Because as you can see, sometimes my hands don't cooperate. So I'm going to punch one at a time here, one layer at a time, just so that it goes all the way through. It went through the other one, but I just really want to make sure it goes all the way through, because I kind of had to push it through on the first one that I punched out. There we go. And then I will press this. Okay. I'll just move my rivet press out of the way for now. Move my machine out of the way for now, and there is our strap, all complete. Has the two swivel hooks. We can take it, attach it to our bag, and then there's just one last thing to do. So I'm going to adjust my strap just so you can see how it looks. It's really nice to have the strap too, because sometimes people don't like carrying just the handles like this. They like having a shoulder bag or a crossbody bag. If you're out somewhere and you get tired carrying it, it's nice to have that option. Now remember, there was a bow bling that we have for this. So we're going to attach our bow bling to our bag. And you can choose which side you want to be the front and which side you want to be the back. So I think this is going to be my front. And you can choose which side you want to have the bow bling on. You can have it on whatever handle you want. I'm just going to go with this one. And I'm just attaching it using one of the links that I took off originally. Closing it up. And I'm just being careful not to scratch the hardware. That was pretty easy peasy. So there it is. The bow is now on the bag. It looks super cute with the bow. Let's just make sure I have everything done. Yep, so there is the bow attached to the bag, and that is in a separate tutorial, which I will link below. But how beautiful is this bag? So high-end, so classy. You can fix the shape of the bag. You can just reach in and fix the shape. You can leave the zipper tail out if you want to just have the zipper tail for some extra, you know, decoration on the bag. But I love how this looks. It is beautiful. Absolutely stunning bag. You can make this out of quilting cotton. You can do quilting cotton and maybe even do like a panel or do some beautiful embroidery on here, and then you can have these accents really stand out like I did here. That's why I chose this the black for the base of the bag. Actually, I will admit, my son helped me pick what colors I was using for this bag. I gave him a couple choices and he chose the pink. He liked it the best. I actually had two colors of pink, but because he's colorblind, he couldn't really see the difference in them. So he just said one of the pink, and I said, well, a lighter or a darker, and he said lighter. And I think he chose perfectly because this is an absolutely beautiful bag. So again, this is the Bella bag by TobiStylx. I hope you enjoyed sewing this bag along with me and maybe picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. Your bag is ready to take out and show it off to the world, but before you do, don't forget to take photos of your bag and post them on social media and share them using the hashtag so we can all see your bags. Thank you for sewing with me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.